The Exorcism, directed by Joshua John Miller, stars Russell Crowe, Ryan Simpkins, and Sam Worthington. A troubled actor begins to unravel while shooting a supernatural horror film, leading his estranged daughter to wonder if he's slipping back into his past addictions or if there's something more sinister at play. I saw this movie at my local cinema's secret screening. This is an event where the whole gimmick is you sit in the movie theater and don't know what you're going to watch until the ratings board with the film's title comes up on screen. Before its name came up, I was expecting it to be two movies. It could have been this new shark horror movie that's coming out, or the Russell Crowe horror movie. And honestly, I'm glad it was this one, as I've seen the trailer for that shark movie a few times, and it looks rough, so I was relieved to get this instead. Firstly, I thought Russell Crowe did a pretty good job in this movie with what he was given with. I, like many people, have found it really humorous that this is the second year in a row Russell Crowe is doing a Exorcist type horror movie. Last year he was in a movie called The Pope's Exorcist, which I haven't seen, and the fact that this movie isn't a sequel to that movie is insane. But his performance here was good. He has to balance a lot of things, specifically the emotion of Catholic guilt, which for an audience full of Irish people one way or another is really gonna hit home. He's also playing a recovering addict, and there's hints to his struggle in his performance. We get glimpses into why these addictions started, and the reasoning behind it is actually handled in a pretty mature way, I felt, for a movie like this. I thought it was interesting how the concept of this movie is an actor going to play a role of a priest in a horror movie, and they decide to cast Russell Crowe. It's like they knew what they were doing when casting him, even though I was shocked to find out that this movie was first announced and was first filmed all the way back in 2019, and it's only getting released this year, so the fact of him having two Exorcism films one after the other isn't too much of a coincidence as many people are making it out to be. However, with that in mind, it's still a pretty funny thing that the movie throws in. I thought the story of this movie was decent enough. It's certainly unique. There's only a very few horror movies that take place on film sets and take the backdrop of filmmaking in a horror movie setting, so I thought that aspect of the movie made it somewhat unique to a lot of recent horrors that have been out this year, especially the religious horror movies. We've gotten a few of them this year already, but with this added thing here, it definitely sets them apart. Other than that, it follows the standard religious horror movie tropes and surprisingly takes from other horror movies. I especially thought the movie was structured similarly to The Shining. It's not set within a week of events, but the movie is essentially broken up into acts as we see title cards saying which shooting days are which, and the way they're set up and flash on screen. It was similar to The Shining to me. One thing that bugged me, keep in mind this is an R-rated horror movie, and despite that, there's only like 2 deaths in this movie, one of them more gory than the other, and even with that, it's not by much. But what's more annoying is that they have this director character and they set him up to essentially be an asshole. He uses trauma in Russell Crowe's character's life to try and force a better performance out of him, which is a pretty shitty work ethic. So with all that in mind, you almost expect him to die, maybe even the first one to die. But no, the guy gets away scot-free. A completely different character ends up getting axed off, and I thought in context it was just confusing, especially for a horror movie fan like me. I feel like other fans of the genre will be disappointed about that as well. I thought this movie was shot pretty well. There's a lot of really good looking shots. The lighting in this movie is really good, especially when we get to the final confrontation. On the set they have something called the cold room, and it's draped in this greenish bluish lighting. I don't know if it was because of the lighting, but the movie felt really grainy at this part and not in a distracting way. I do feel like it was intentional. I thought it was a really cool detail and it gave that vintage look and almost made it look like certain scenes in The Exorcist, which was obviously a point of reference for this film. The title is just another form of the word exorcist. I mean, come on. The only thing I didn't like about this big blast scene was near the end when this fight with the demon is happening. They really turn up the strobe lighting. There's nothing like this in the rest of the movie. Hell, there wasn't even a warning for strobe lights at the start like other movies would have. So if you're epileptic, take that as a warning, because after watching that scene I thought I was going to end up developing epilepsy. It's completely overdone. It's way overly edited with lots of fast cutting where you can't see what's going on. It's really distracting because up until this point, the last part of the movie was a pretty cool setting to be in. This movie wasn't particularly scary as per usual. With my numbness to horror films, it's riddled with the usual number of jump scares. However, I'm unsure if it was to do with my theater or if they had made these jump scare noises louder in this movie on purpose, because they seem to be overly obnoxiously loud. They just became overly annoying and a pain in the ass to listen to when they came on screen. All of the execution of them were incredibly predictable, which as usual is standard procedure in terms of modern horror movies. There's few moments for subtle chilling moments, and there's no real great creepy atmosphere to present here, which which is a shame to see. Overall, despite some of its usual flaws, I did enjoy this more than I thought I would. The story really holds everything together by bringing something somewhat new to the religious horror subgenre. It's still not anything incredible, but I do think it does its job as a solid addition to the genre. It just has a lot of things that have become commonplace, which I can't complain too much about. I've given The Exorcism 3.5 stars. It delivers a good performance from Russell Crowe and displays a good deal of entertaining moments despite it having a lot of tropey things that we've seen before. If you're a fan of the horror genre, I'd recommend checking it out whenever you can.